Idi Amin kept human heads in his freezer. That's not a metaphor. Actual, severed heads stored between the ice cream and the frozen peas in the presidential palace in Uganda. The rumors went further. His enemies whispered that he didn't just collect them. He ate them, cooked them, served them at dinner parties. The Butcher of Uganda wasn't just a nickname, it was a menu description. Here's the truth. No one ever proved he was a cannibal, but he definitely wanted you to think he was. He bragged about it, told a British journalist he preferred human flesh to pork, called it too salty for his taste. Whether he actually did it or not doesn't matter. The man kept body parts in his kitchen as a power move. But heads weren't the only thing he was obsessed with. Amin ate 40 oranges a day. 40. He believed oranges were nature's Viagra. He had so many wives and mistresses that he convinced himself that vitamin C was the only thing keeping him capable. He also loved Kentucky Fried Chicken. When he went into exile in Saudi Arabia, he reportedly had buckets of KFC flown in weekly. The man who terrorized a nation spent his retirement eating fried chicken and watching cartoons. But Amin wasn't special. Dictators throughout history had eating habits that ranged from pathetic to revolting, and while millions starved under their rule, these men ate like deranged emperors. Let's talk about it. You've probably heard that Adolf Hitler was a vegetarian. People love to bring this up like it makes him complicated. Like he was some kind of animal-loving pacifist who just happened to genocide 11 million people. Here's what they don't tell you. Hitler didn't avoid meat because he cared about animals. He avoided it because he had chronic explosive flatulence. The man farted constantly. His stomach was a disaster. Doctors told him to stop eating meat because it made him bloated and gave him crippling cramps. So, what did the Führer eat instead? Mashed vegetables, bland, mushy, baby food vegetables with no seasoning, and cake. Lots of cake. He was obsessed with pastries and would eat multiple slices in one sitting while his officers awkwardly pretended not to notice. His favorite? Apple strudel. He'd eat it for breakfast, covered in whipped cream. The man orchestrating the Holocaust was basically running on sugar crashes and gas pains. Eva Braun, his girlfriend, complained in her diary that he had horrible breath and refused to kiss him after meals. But the cake wasn't the worst thing he put in his body. To treat his gas, Hitler hired a quack doctor named Theodor Morell. Morell prescribed Dr. Kuster's anti-gas pills. These pills had a secret ingredient, strychnine, rat poison. Hitler was literally poisoning himself to stop farting. By 1944, he was taking up to 20 pills a day. Historians believe the tremors you see in his later footage, the shaking hands, the erratic behavior, weren't just stress. They were side effects of the rat poison he was eating to digest his apple strudel. The man who wanted to create a master race was a drug addict relying on a quack to function. If Hitler's diet made him look weak, Stalin's made him look sadistic. Joseph Stalin loved dinner parties. Loved them. He'd invite his top ministers to his dacha outside Moscow and force them to sit through 6-hour banquets. But here's the thing. It wasn't a party. It was a test. Stalin would make them drink vodka, wine, Georgian brandy, glass after glass, and you couldn't refuse. If you didn't drink, Stalin assumed you were plotting against him, so his ministers drank until they vomited, until they wet themselves, until they passed out at the table. Nikita Khrushchev, who later became Soviet leader, wrote in his memoirs about being forced to dance like a fool while drunk. Beria, the secret police chief, would laugh as grown men humiliated themselves, and Stalin would sit there, watching, eating roasted lamb and caviar, calculating who was weak. Outside, people stood in bread lines. Families ate sawdust mixed with flour. The Ukrainian famine, the Holodomor, killed 4 million people by starvation. And Stalin? He was forcing ministers to drink themselves unconscious over plates of roasted duck. But if you think Stalin's banquets were grotesque, wait until you hear about the rice inspector. Kim Jong-il, the former dictator of North Korea, was a lunatic, but his food obsession was next-level insane. He didn't just want good food, he wanted perfect food. He had a team of women, young women specifically selected for their eyesight, who would inspect every single grain of rice before it was cooked for him. Every single grain. They'd sit for hours with tweezers, removing any grain that wasn't perfectly white, perfectly shaped, perfectly uniform. Meanwhile, in the countryside, North Koreans were eating grass, bark, boiling leather shoes to make soup. The famine in the 1990s killed up to 3 million people. Children's growth was stunted permanently. And Kim Jong-il? He was having rice grains inspected like diamonds. He also imported Hennessy cognac by the crate. Spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on brandy while his people starved. He had sushi flown in from Japan, live lobsters from Norway. His personal chef, a Japanese man named Kenji Fujimoto, wrote a book about it. He said Kim's motto was simple: food is the best medicine. From rice grains inspected like diamonds to breath that could kill, we're heading to fascist Italy. Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy, had one great love in life. Not his wife, not his country. Garlic, raw garlic, bowls of it. He believed garlic made him virile, strong. He'd eat entire cloves raw before meetings, crunch them down like apples. His breath was so horrific that diplomats would stand as far away as possible during conversations. His own mistresses complained, but he didn't care. Clara Petacci, his longtime mistress, wrote in her diary that kissing him was like kissing an onion. She begged him to stop. He refused. He told her garlic was the secret to his power, that it kept his blood strong and his mind sharp. Meanwhile, Italians were struggling under sanctions and war rationing. Bread was scarce. Olive oil was being hoarded. People were eating polenta for every meal, and Mussolini was eating garlic like it was candy. When he was executed in 1945 and hung upside down in a Milan square, crowds came to spit on his corpse, wonder if they could still smell the garlic. These men didn't just steal lives, they didn't just steal freedom, they stole lunch, dinner, breakfast. They lived like kings in palaces built on mass graves, eating food their people would never taste. If you want more stories about the monsters history tried to bury, subscribe to Tyrant Tales, because the truth is always more disgusting than the propaganda.